All right, so we have a lot to talk about today, but the topic we're going to lead for our first video deals with Shigeru Miyamoto and some comments that he made at the Computer Entertainment Developers Conference, CEDEC. We reported on it yesterday about how Nintendo talked about their OS and stuff like that, and it was very interesting, some conversations we had surrounding that. But this time, he talks a lot about game monetization during his speech. And it's very interesting, some of the points he touches upon. So here are some direct quotes that came from Bloomberg.com, who was in attendance. And it says, "We're lucky to have such a giant market. So our thinking is, if we can deliver games at a reasonable price to as many people as possible, we will see big profits. I can't say that our fixed cost model has really been a success," the usually candid Miyamoto said. "But we're going to continue pushing it forward until it becomes entrenched. That way, everyone can develop games in a comfortable environment. By focusing on bringing games to the widest range of people possible, we can continue boosting our mobile game business." And then he also goes on to talk about the subscription model, which is very important. And this is directly quoted from the Bloomberg article. It says, "Miyamoto also said game developers should heed lessons from the music industry, which is still struggling to recover after consumers learn to consume music for free through MP3 file sharing, as well as YouTube and streaming services. He said subscription-style services should play a bigger role in games, but said the key is to develop a culture of paying for good software." And then this is directly from Miyamoto, "It's necessary for developers to learn to get along. Subscription-style services," Miyamoto said. "When seeking a partner for this, it's important to find someone who understands the value of your software. Then customers will feel the value in your apps and software and develop a habit of paying money for them." And the reason we're talking about this is it brings up a very interesting talking point about what the best way to make money in the video game industry really is, because we are in the midst of probably the most muddled time in gaming history when it comes to monetization methods. I know we give companies like EA tons and tons of flack for microtransactions and loot boxes and all that stuff, put in their full $60 price games and them trying to normalize that kind of culture. And a lot of people have negative opinions of the mobile game space, where you're playing games on your phone because of the microtransactions and the loot boxes that are there, even in free-to-play games, or even in games that you spend a couple bucks on, or sometimes $10 in the case of Super Mario Run, although that doesn't have any of that sort of monetization going on. It's a very interesting market we're in, because the more and more consumers continue to see free games that they feel are at a quality level comparable to other games that are costing $60, the more it becomes normalized for them to expect microtransactions, loot boxes, and all that kind of monetization method. And as Miyamoto pointed out, the fixed cost model it isn't necessarily always successful. In the case of Super Mario Run, it really was not that successful. When you have Fire Emblem Heroes pushing a higher profit margin with a severely less install base, it lets you know that people on mobile devices aren't into paying that fixed cost. And even beyond the mobile space, you get into the console space. What's the most popular game in the world right now? People are playing on PC and consoles. Free-to-play Fortnite. And they are basically offering just cosmetics as purchasable items, and people are spending tons and tons of money in cosmetics in a free-to-play game that gives them no direct advantages in the game itself, but people are spending the money. And heck, I get even mocked at times when I'm streaming Fortnite on Switch and I'm just using the default skins because I haven't spent any extra money. And it's not because I don't think that the company doesn't deserve any money, because it's a great game. I just don't feel the need to have to spend the money. So it's a very interesting place we're in. And obviously with subscription services, Nintendo's launching their own subscription service soon. And it's interesting where he talks about how this might become something that companies need to do. EA just recently launched a subscription service on PC that, we've known for a while. They have an EA Access over on Xbox, but now they launched a service that gives you all of their games, all of them, even the brand new ones, 5 to 10 days early. Plus, you get to play the games as long as you are subscribed. I know because I have that PC subscription. That's how I'm playing Madden 19. We know Xbox is going along with Game Pass, and this is a very interesting time we are in the gaming market, because for so long in the market, before smartphones existed in 2007 and apps became like this big thing, it was always you paid a set amount of money for a specific game, and that was basically that. Yeah, there were games like FIFA that were kind of exploring and playing around with the idea of microtransactions, but for the most part, video games were pay a set amount of money, here's your game, and that has changed so much over the years. And this, I think, is what Miyamoto's touching point on, not just in the mobile space, but in gaming on the whole. What is the right way to release games? What's the right way to monetize? It's almost why we can't get upset when a company like EA basically chooses to use all of the above, except they're not going to make their games free to play, right? They're going to charge you up front and use loot boxes and use this and use that, because everyone right now is in this state where they don't really know the best way to monetize their games. Now, we could talk about anti-consumer practices and all this stuff, but the thing is, when you look at loot boxes and microtransactions, is it anti-consumer? Is it anti-consumer? Is it free-to-play Fortnite anti-consumer because it has a crap load of cosmetic items you can buy with real-world money? And people are doing it. And people don't seem to frown upon that. People don't seem to be frowning upon the fact that Overwatch does the same thing, but they do it with loot boxes. People aren't frowning upon that. What about in World of Warcraft? You have to, you have to pay a subscription service to play every single month, and then on top of that, they still charge you to buy like pets and mounts and all these other things. Yes, you don't have to buy those things, but they heavily encourage you to purchase those items. They advertise them right to your face, to your email, all that great stuff, and you see it. Other people have it in game, and you're like, oh, I gotta have that. And they've been using the subscription model for their MMO plus charging you up front. Just got the expansion pass. That's like a $50 expansion pass, and then you still got to pay, $15 a month or whatever, $60 a year or whatever it is. It's crazy that companies can do that. And, then you have Nintendo. Here's Super Mario Odyssey, $60. All the content added to it so far has been 100% free. No announced DLC. You have games like Call of Duty. Yeah, we're going to have a whole bunch of DLC. And all these models, as upset as we get, we are in a stage where we don't know, where companies don't know really, what to do about it, because the cost to develop games, especially at the AAA level, have skyrocketed, right? Like the cost to make something like Breath of the Wild, like compared to the original Legend of Zelda on the NES, is astronomical. The team size and the years spent making it and the money invested, like Breath of the Wild is such a massive investment for Nintendo, maybe even compared to any game they've ever made. And you look at that investment to make that game compared to what Nintendo used to do, but that game still costs $60. It still costs what they were charging for games, decades ago. And money, especially here in the U.S., I can't speak for other countries, we've had inflation happen over and over and over again. $60 today is not worth what $60 was when I was a kid. $60 when I was a kid, you know how many movies you could go to? Do you know how much gas you could put in your car? How many groceries you could get? Heck, there were places you could probably pay rent for just a little more than $60 a month back when I was a kid in some parts of the country. It's fascinating to see that we are living in this space where, yes, you could say maybe video games were overpriced back then, but were they? Video games have always been a very expensive medium. Video games have always been a first world problem, right? Like, not even a problem, but a first world entertainment medium. One of the most expensive entertainment mediums. It's always been that way. That's the way video games have always been. But now, video games today, in many ways, are more accessible than they've ever been because they're everywhere on every device. Not just like, going to the store and buying, one of those $1 individual games you play in your hand like you could when I was a kid, but just right there on your phones. Devices that billions of people have. Free. Go play Fire Emblem Heroes for free. Go play Animal Crossing for free. Pocket Camp. And Pocket Camp's actually pretty good. Are people going to be willing to spend $60 on an Animal Crossing on Switch when Pocket Camp is available for free? What about Mario Kart Tour? Is that going to affect Mario Kart 8 sales moving forward? It's a very interesting conundrum that these companies find themselves in trying to maximize all the different markets and trying to figure out what is really the best way to monetize. Now, to Miyamoto's point, he said Nintendo moving forward is trying to push a fixed cost model, not just on mobile phones, but obviously on Switch itself. And another thing, like they're not going to try to offer their games for free. They're not going to try to do tons of microtransactions. Though there will be DLC at times, but they're not going to push a lot of microtransactions and loot boxes. That doesn't mean they're against those practices, and they might explore those practices, but their focus is trying to basically maintain the status quo. They're looking at it as, we think the fixed price model is, even though it's not necessarily working for us in all situations, we really believe in a fixed price model and trying to push that and normalize that and make it so consumers are more and more willing to spend money. And I don't know that that's going to work, because that model's going right up, like butting heads with games like Fortnite and Paladins, free-to-play games is butting heads. Like, you can look at those games and say those are just as high a quality as what Nintendo's putting out, and it's free, and it's just butting heads and making an interesting market here. And it's just like when people are chastising, Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation for charging for these online subscription models, but think about in the case of Xbox specifically, right? They haven't had a great generation when it comes to hardware sales, selling numbers that are very similar to N64, which wasn't really a great generation in terms of sales for Nintendo, even though a lot of us might have fond memories of some of the games, especially from Rare during that era. But what's interesting to me is that, we chastise, someone like Xbox for Xbox Live and all that stuff, but imagine where Xbox would be today if they didn't have that subscription in place, if they didn't have those millions of people subscribed to their service. Where would Xbox be today without the money coming in from that? I don't really know. And now they're throwing Game Pass out there. And for the most part, it's a wholly positive thing, because they're not replacing physical games. They're just saying, hey, you can just spend $10 and get a bunch of games if you want, if that's what you want to do. And it's not a streaming service. You download them. But, you can just spend $10. You don't have to go out and spend $60. You can even just get it for a month here and there. Oh, I don't know if I want to get the new Halo. Spend $10, try it out. If you like it, you can keep it. You can just go buy it. You can just purchase the digital version of it and, cancel your subscription. It's a very interesting model that I think is something that a lot, Nintendo needs to explore. I think Sony needs to explore it as well. This idea of a subscription service to get your games. I don't think Game Pass is a terrible thing. I think it's one of the most brilliant things Microsoft has done in some time. But, as we get closer to the Nintendo's online subscription launching, I think more than ever, we need to be having this conversation about what really are the best practices for monetizing video games. I'm glad Miyamoto started this conversation at CEDEC. I think it's a very interesting one about game monetization, subscription-style services, how he believes pretty much you need to find a subscription-style service that works for you, like Nintendo's doing with their online. We'll see if they do anything more. And you talked about, that valuation of games. I think that is important. Like, if Nintendo ever offers a game subscription service, if they partner with someone to try to make that happen, well, there has to be a company that understands the value of your IP, and your valuation of your IP better match what consumers value your IP at, or it's gonna be issues. You got Microsoft out there charging $10 and you're getting $60 products day one. It's like, oh man, what's the right price for Nintendo? Should they charge $20 a month for all of their games because they maybe release more of them? What do they include in that? Are they going to include the back catalog when some of the back catalog like NES games are going to be on the online subscription? I don't know what to do. I don't know if anyone knows what to do at this point, but it's an interesting conversation, and I am curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'm Nathaniel Rufflejans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do, and if you dislike the video, hit that dislike button, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you in the next one.